keeps the family together. Thank you. And I do indeed want to thank my family, because one thing I have done over the years is I've deliberately never pressured them into doing anything, and especially with politics. And yet they have spontaneously always volunteered. Matter of fact, Rand and the rest of them got together and made this plan to come up here. And it didn't come from me, but that makes me feel very good about it. And it also makes me feel very good that I see you as part of our family, and that you're here, and nobody coerced you, and I love it. You know, the most common question I get from the media, it happens every time, and they always ask, what's going on? You know, where are the people coming from? What's happening on the internet? Where are the volunteers coming from? Where's the money coming from? And why is there so much enthusiasm? And, you know, I've had a lot of time to think about this, and sometimes you have a little bit of time to explain it. Other times you have to answer it in 3 seconds. So I've decided that when I have to give a quick answer, I usually just say, freedom is popular. But I'm the first one to admit that not only am I pleased, but I'm very surprised and ecstatic about the enthusiasm, because it tells me that my skepticism was completely wrong, that a lot of people do care, and a lot of new people, once they hear the message, will join us. And to me, that is very exciting, because I really believe one way or the other, regardless of what happens in this campaign, something very significant is happening in this country today. The paradigm is shifting. We have lived for so long in this country by deferring and defaulting to those who want to control our lives through the use of government force, and we're sick and tired of it, and we want to control our own lives. Some people have labeled this a revolution, and I would say this is a grand day for a revolution. Thank you. You know, I am a strong believer that our lives and our liberties come from our Creator. And if our lives are truly our own, of course, we have to take care of ourselves, and we have to be self-reliant, and we have to suffer consequences if we make mistakes, and not depend on our neighbors to take care of us. So if we have our life and liberty given to us by our Creator and not by our government, doesn't it follow that the fruits of our labor should belong to us 100%? And of course, if you believe that, the corollary to that is we have to totally reject the 16th Amendment and get rid of the IRS. The principle of the income tax is exactly opposite of the principles of liberty. That means the government owns us, and they allow us to keep a certain percentage under certain conditions, those things that we earn. Now, that, of course, is a total rejection of what made America great, and unfortunately now it's been almost 100 years that we have accepted this principle, and it needs to be reversed. But you know, a similar program or an understanding exists which further enforces this notion that the government owns us, and that is the principle of the selective service and the draft. That has to be rejected as well. To me, the idea of a military draft is based on the concept of an authoritarian, because it says, once again, the government owns the people, and for some reason, you know, it just said, well, isn't it a good idea? The 18-year-olds owe it to America, that they have to be registered to fight for the country. No, it is not true. If we have to fight for our country and fight for our liberties, we all should be involved, not the 18-year-olds. And unfortunately, when they can resort to the draft, it also means that they are more likely to get involved in wars they shouldn't be involved in. And unfortunately, they're looking at it right now because I am very concerned about what might happen in the Middle East. And the reason why our efforts and our rallies and our movement has to prevail is the fact that not only do we not only want to end that war, we don't want it to spread. We need to start bringing our troops home. I am convinced that this message, the message of freedom and the Constitution, is very much an effort that brings people together. It brings diverse groups together because it's non-confrontational. We're not judgmental. We can be judgmental in a moral sense of saying what somebody's doing might be wrong or bad, but not judgmental in the legal sense. It also recognizes the responsibility of oneself, that we have a responsibility for our own being and what we turn out to be, but we have responsibilities for our family. And that's where the responsibility is. But if we turn this whole idea over to the government, to being responsible for our personal behavior, and thinking the government knows what is best for us and knows what we're supposed to do with our lives, that is done at the rejection of liberty, so we have to totally eliminate and reject that principle. You know, it goes without saying, even though it's being abused quite frequently, that the First Amendment protects our right of freedom of speech and right of organizing and assembly. And fortunately, that is respected well enough that we can still participate in the electoral process. But at times, that even can be subject to regulation. But we know that the governments are not supposed to regulate what we put into our minds, and certainly the government should not be regulating how we deal with our spirit and our spiritual life and our personal beliefs. But just think of how they violate this whole principle that they say, well, maybe your mind is okay, your spirit and your eternal salvation is something the government isn't involved in, but all of a sudden every single thing you do with your own body and what you put in your own body, the government, you can't do it without permission of the government. But that should be a freedom idea just as well.